Greetings and welcome to my video on getting started with Bootstrap 5. The purpose of this video is to get you up and running quickly and easily and to get you acquainted with some of the most important parts of the Bootstrap 5 framework. We'll cover the grid for how site content can be laid out. We'll go through utility classes and how they can be used to change the way site content is presented, and we'll get a bit of a primer on how Bootstrap components work. I've put together a number of demonstrations to make it as clear as I can how Bootstrap works and how you can make it work for you. All the code I'll be writing in this course will happen on screen, so if you want to follow along, you definitely can, and your computer will do exactly what my computer does. And if that sounds like a lot of work, I'll make all the code available through CodePens, which you'll be able to find in the links below of this video. Those CodePens will actually be quite interesting. You can basically change them, rearrange them, break the code and put it back together, and they'll provide a really good opportunity for fiddling around and seeing how these things work. At the end of the course, we'll put our skills together to make a website, this website. It's pretty simple. I'm just going to say it's got a minimalist aesthetic, but it's going to be quite valuable as an exercise to show how the various concepts we'll go through can be put together in one project. And along the way, we'll cover some things in the website that we won't get to in the preliminary parts of this course. The order of presentation will be as follows. First, we'll look at what Bootstrap is, then we'll look at how to get it into your site. Next, we cover the grid, utilities, and components. And finally, the course project. So without further ado, let's dive in. What is Bootstrap? Bootstrap is a front-end development framework. What's that? It's a code library. What's that? Basically, it's a bunch of code somebody else wrote which we can use for free. On a high level, Bootstrap is two things. First, a CSS resource, and second, a JavaScript resource. You can think of it as an external CSS style sheet that you hook into your website, and then you can start using the CSS classes that Bootstrap has already made. And similarly with the JavaScript, you hook the JavaScript file into your website and then simply refer to the JavaScript in the HTML, and that allows you to create interactive components or JavaScript-driven components without actually writing your own JavaScript. Perhaps the easiest way to understand what Bootstrap is to see what it does. So again, this is the course website, and this is the code for the website. Bootstrap is coming into this website through this link tag, which is a link to the CDN for Bootstrap. All of Bootstrap's CSS resources are coming through this link. Similarly, down here, we've got a script tag, which links the CDN for Bootstrap's JavaScript resources. If I go up to this link tag and comment it out and hit Control Save, we'll see that the website now looks quite a bit different. The content is all exactly the same, but we've lost all the styles. So the difference between this and this is the code that was coming through Bootstrap through this CDN. And similarly with the JavaScript, if I were to comment that script tag out, I would lose access to all of the Bootstrap JavaScript resources, and any JavaScript enabled components I have in my site would not run. Let's go through another example to further clarify what Bootstrap is up to. So I'm going to go into CodePen, that's codepen.io, and I'm signed into my account already. If you log into CodePen or get an account, you'll be able to do the same thing. For now, I would say you can just watch and not worry about coding along. What I'm going to do here is create a button component and then show how Bootstrap classes change the way the button component works, and then again what's going on behind the scenes with those Bootstrap classes so we get a better sense of exactly what's coming through the Bootstrap code. So I'll make a button component here, and that's this guy right here. This is pure HTML. Now I'll just copy and paste that, and this time I'm going to give it a class attribute of BTN and BTN primary, and those are Bootstrap classes. Now let's go back into the code for my website. As I mentioned before, in this course website, Bootstrap is coming in through this link tag, so I'm literally just going to copy and paste that link tag and slap the exact same link right into this CodePen, and then yeah, we'll see the styling of this button just changed. to give it the blue background and a little more size, and then when you click it, there's this blue shadow to indicate the active state. How did these classes create that different style? Well, if we go into the developer tools, we'll be able to see exactly. .btn. This is the base class for a Bootstrap button, and it includes all of these style declarations. A display property, a font weight, a line height, etc., etc. And all of this is coming right from the Bootstrap style sheet, which comes through that CDN. Then the modifier class .btn primary is the class that adds a little bit of extra background color and some extra styling there. Now, if we wanted to reproduce that button, but without using Bootstrap, we easily could. So let's start by copying and pasting this .btn class. And I'm just going to put that code into the CSS part of this CodePen. So there's our class .btn, and now I'll copy and paste the modifier class .btn primary, and I'm going to rename each of these classes to something a bit different so that we can distinguish them from Bootstrap classes. I'm just going to call them my-btn-primary and my-btn. And now I'll create a new button component with the new classes, my-btn primary, and we see our button has come out exactly the same as Bootstrap's button. That's because there's nothing going on with Bootstrap except this CSS. So it's very simple. If you wanted to literally reproduce what Bootstrap provides in your own external style sheet, you could do that. The question is, why would you? Because you can get all that code through this link, and that's a lot easier. Now, just one quick note, this button here is not exactly the same as the Bootstrap button because there are some more classes we'd have to put in there to affect the hover state and the active state and that kind of thing. But in principle, this demonstrates how Bootstrap is operating behind the scenes. Now let's look at how to get Bootstrap into our project. And to do that, I'm going to go to the internet. And in particular, the website where we get Bootstrap, which is getbootstrap.com. And it'll take you to this page. If you click on the Getting Started button, then you go to the documentation and this introductory page. And what we're looking for here is, as we saw before, the CDN to the CSS file and the JavaScript file. Wait a minute, what the heck's a CDN? CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. It's a way of hosting website files that involves storing the information on multiple servers in multiple different locations, and that's as opposed to the typical way of hosting files on a single web server. Let's look at a picture. This diagram, so to speak, represents the single server approach. No matter where in the world the web user is, they have to get the web files from one location without regard to time, distance, space, or performance. On the other hand, a CDN, represented by this diagram, permits web users to get files from a location which is closest to them and therefore theoretically going to allow them to download the files faster. CDNs bring a number of benefits. First of all, they tend to be optimized for performance. And in Bootstrap's case in particular, Bootstrap is a very popular web framework, and oftentimes users will already have Bootstrap files cached on their browsers, so when they go to your website, if you're using a CDN, they won't even have to download those files again. They're already there. Now let's get back to the Bootstrap docs. So these two resources here represent what Bootstrap is, the CSS and the JavaScript. This link here is exactly what I had in my course website, which I copied and pasted into that CodePen. And the JavaScript link here, again, is exactly what we saw before in that course website. Now, Bootstrap has this convenient starter template, which provides everything you need to start a web page with your doc type declaration, HTML tag, head tag, and so on and so forth. And crucially for us, the link tag to Bootstrap's CSS resources and the script tag linking the JavaScript resources. This is the way that we're going to focus on to get Bootstrap into our website, but there are other alternatives. You can download the compiled files. So compiled means they're ready to go. All you have to do is host the files on your web server and incorporate them into your website in the usual course. And second, or rather third in this case, that you can work with the source files, which are in Sass. So Sass is a CSS preprocessor. If you don't know what a CSS preprocessor is, don't worry. Basically, it's a computer programming language which allows you to write CSS in a bit of a more convenient fashion, and Sass then translates your Sass language into CSS for you. It's a powerful tool, can be quite interesting to use, but we're not going to focus on it for this course. Let's go back now to this starter template. I'm literally going to copy this, minimize that website, and I'm going to open a new folder on my desktop, and I'll call it Bootstrap Demo, and that's it. Now, next, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code as my code editor. You can use any code editor you want if you're going to follow along, and in fact, if you want to use a text file, plain text file, you can do that as well. In this video, I'm trying to keep things quite concise, so I actually won't go through the process for downloading VS Code and how to get it set up, but you'll find a lot of resources on that. So to start things off, I'm just going to open up a folder, the folder that I just created for Bootstrap Demo. Within it, a new file called index.html, and now I'm going to hit Control-V, and we can see there's the demo website, or rather the starter template that we got from Bootstrap, or getbootstrap.com. I'll save that. I'm going to open this up now with an extension I use on VS Code called Live Server. Again, I won't go into that either. But in any event, this is what comes up. So this is the website that we have shown in this code. It's obviously your typical starter website, hello world, and it is coming in with this Bootstrap style. We know that because if I comment out the link and hit Control Save, now we're back to the default styles, which is a serif font. So this website is working. Alt Z to wrap the text. I'll start by commenting that Bootstrap link tag back in. Now, on the JavaScript side, you'll notice there are two options here to use JavaScript, which they've got in this template. Option one is to use the Bootstrap bundle with Popper.js, and Popper.js is another third-party library. And that's the one I would suggest using. That's what I'm going to use for this course in any event. Option two is to separate Popper.js and Bootstrap.js and bring them in with two separate link tags, and you might do that because not all components with Bootstrap require Popper.js. So I'm just going to delete that stuff that we don't need to clean this guy up a little bit. And that's that. That's how we get Bootstrap into a website. Next, I have to cover off some housekeeping. And I'm actually going to change plans slightly. I'm going to turn this index.html into template.html because I'm going to be making a number of HTML files based on the same template. And in this same directory, I'll create a new file called styles.css. And the first order of business is going to be to create our first actual demo site, which I will call grid.html. In the next video, we'll look at how to lay site content out using the Bootstrap grid. If you're enjoying this video, then feel free to like and subscribe. If you're not, feel free to just keep your peace. And if you want to learn more about Bootstrap and all its nuances, tricks, and traps, I've got a couple courses on Udemy which may be of interest.